Hey guys, Kirsten here, and I just got back from St. George doing the 70.3 World Championship race for 2022. So I wanted to share my experience with you. So a lot of you were asking how my race went. So here is my race report. Going into the race, I was pretty confident as far as my training goes, and I was feeling good. I tapered a little bit, so I was feeling rested. And I had a really good week leading up to the race. I got to go to St. George by myself, which is always a treat. Didn't have to worry about anyone else but myself. So that was really nice. I did a really good job with my nutrition during taper, which is very rare. So I actually went in feeling really good. So race morning, I woke up at 4:30 and I was out of the house by 4:45, got to the bus by 5, got on the bus at like 5:05 and got to the reservoir about 5:25. My plan was to go a little bit later. I thought everything would take me a little bit longer in the morning. So I actually got to the res way earlier than I wanted to. And here's why I wanted to wait a little bit, because my wave didn't start until 8:40 in the morning, and it was like 35 degrees out. So I was trying to hold off, but everything went so fast and it was really easy because there weren't as many women as there were men, and the women have their own day of racing. So we raced on Friday, and so there was so few women compared to how big the men's race was that there was just it was just easy to get places. There was no porta potty lines. There was no line to get on the bus. So I got there way too early and I was cold. So one thing I learned from having such a late wave start from my last race that had a late wave start in May is I got really hungry waiting around. So I was really smart this time and I ate a humongous bowl of oatmeal with peanut butter and maple syrup, which I eat every race morning. And then I brought 2 Shakeologies with me to drink throughout the morning. So that was, oh my gosh, that was a lifesaver because I didn't start the race hungry. I didn't come out of the swim hungry. So I did that right. There were tons of things I did wrong, but I did that right. So when I got there, I checked on my bike, thankfully, because my chain was off. Put my chain on, checked my tires. I always pump them up the night before and they felt fine, so I didn't worry about them. Put my drinks in my cages, put my drinks in my Aero bottle, and that took like 5 minutes. So then I had like 3 hours to wait. And I was really cold. I had 3 layers on the top, my big like fleece pajama pants. I had socks, I had gloves, I had a hat, I had a hood. I had so much stuff and I was still really cold. So I went to the bathroom and there was nobody in line. All the bathrooms were open. So I actually sat in the porta potty for like an hour. So that's how cold it was. Like I would rather sit in a porta potty for an hour than sit outside for an hour. And there were people coming in and out all around me. If I would have looked out and there was a line, of course I would have gotten out, but there was no line. Even right before the race, no lines. It was amazing. Tons of porta potties. So anyway, I sat in the porta potty for an hour, checked my messages. So thank you for everyone who sent me good luck messages in the morning. They were read and I really appreciate it. So after that hour, I came out thinking like it might be warming up. It wasn't. It was still super cold. So I just went ahead and put on my wetsuit so that it held in a little bit of heat. And I still had 2 hours to my race. So I had my wetsuit on, all my clothes over, put on my hood, and I watched an episode of The Voice. So this was my pre-race ritual this time. I watched a show on my phone. And then, so another hour went by and finally I'm like, okay, now I can get ready for the race. So I went and I ran for about 15 minutes, yes, in my wetsuit, just to get my body warmed up. And then I went back into the porta potty to like get everything organized and put on correctly, because I just kind of threw my wetsuit on because I knew I had time to readjust. And I went out, I drank my second shake. I drank my first shake when I first got there. I drank my second shake. I kept my gloves and socks on and then went to the swim start. So it was a wave start. My whole wave started together. I think we had 200 and something people in our wave, and it went off every 15 seconds, 10 people went. So I tried to get kind of toward the front. I was in the second group of 10. So it's 10 people, beep, 10 people 15 seconds later, and I went. So my swim felt really, really good. It felt easy. The water temperature was perfect. It was like, I think it was 62 degrees. I had my full wetsuit on. My swim felt amazing. The only issue I had, which is really rare, is that when I started running out up the ramp after the swim, my hamstrings were cramping up. So I don't know if it's because I was so cold earlier in the, like I was cold for 3 hours, that everything was just really tight, because I didn't feel cold at all. And so my hamstrings were cramping, which was kind of weird. They didn't cramp all the way, but I felt them really tightening. And I was like, oh crap, that's not good. But they were fine. I ran up the ramp. My swim time was 31 minutes, which is pretty much what I expected. My goal always is to get around 30 minutes in the swim. So 31, perfect for me. And I came out of the swim. I think I was in 12th place for women, for my age group. So I ran up the ramp. It was a pretty long transition. And in my mind, in my bike bag before I left, because I knew it was going to be so cold, I was going to wear socks, gloves. I already had toe covers on my shoes, and arm warmers. And then I had a jacket, like a throwaway jacket, that I was just going to wear until I got warm. And the sun was out. We had a really sunny day, thankfully. And the swim was warm. I was working. I ran up the ramp, went through the really long run to transition. And by the time I grabbed my stuff, I was really, really warm. And so rookie mistake number one is I didn't stick to my plan. My plan was to put on all those clothes. And when I got there, I was like, oh, it's warmed up a lot. The sun is out. I was like not even chilly at all. And so I did not put on my arm warmers or my jacket, because I thought it was warm. So I just put on my socks, my gloves, my shoes. As I was putting on my shoes, my calves were cramping a little bit. Again, that normally doesn't happen. So I just was like, oh, it must be because I was cold so much this morning. So they'll just, warm up as I go. So I start off on the bike, and my transition was like 5 minutes. I don't know any of these stats until after, because I don't wear any sort of watch or anything while I race. And I don't know who's in front of me in my age group. So apparently I was 6th out of transition, 12th off the swim, and 6th out of transition, because I was the stupid one and didn't put on clothes. And it's not because I was trying to get out of transition. It's that I literally thought it was warm enough that I wasn't going to need it. I'm like, the sun's out. I'm going to warm up really quickly. This is a hilly course. I have done this course so many times, and I did not realize how much downhill there is in the first half of the race. So we kept going downhill, and I wanted to go uphill because I wanted to warm up, and we just kept going downhill. And I kept thinking, like, where is the uphill? I thought this was an uphill course. So for those of you thinking that St. George is all uphills, it's not. When you're freezing, it's all downhill. I just wanted to be warm. So I was so cold. So I was down. I was just like, everything was just tight. Like my neck and my shoulders, my hips, my hamstrings, my glutes, everything just felt extra tight. And I was shivering. My lips were blue. Like my jaw was really clenched. And I didn't warm up until the climb up Snow Canyon, which is about 45 miles in. So along the way, I'm drinking my Infinite, which I had no stomach problems. My bike felt like my bike energy felt amazing. But as I was getting ready to finish, I started feeling really hungry. And I think I had the normal amount of calories on my bike for the 3 hours. But I think because I was cold, I burned through those calories faster, and I was hungry as I was finishing the bike. And I had a packet of little Pro Bar blocks in my little pouch that I was thinking, I'm like, oh, I should probably eat those. I'm a little hungry. But I was thinking, oh, I'm going to be on the run in just a few minutes. I'll just start drinking my run stuff, because that's calories and that's going to replenish my calories. So that was my second mistake. I should have eaten those blocks because I started the run hungry, which messes with my stomach a little bit. And then it's just a little bit harder. Plus I was really like tight and tense from being cold. So I got off the bike. I think my bike time was 2:56, which is my slowest bike time at St. George by like 10 minutes in the past like 6 or 7 years. So again, I didn't know this at the time. I actually felt like my bike was a little bit faster, but I think because I was just so cold that it just wasn't. So I get into transition. The transition at this race was the easiest transition ever, the T2. Basically, somebody takes your bike and you grab your bag, you sit on a chair, and then just turn and go out. So it was a super easy, short transition. So I think my transition time was like 2 minutes. So I get on the run and everything was already achy, which isn't normal. And it was things that aren't like normally achy at all, like my arms, my lower back, like things just felt achy. I think I was just so like tense and cold on the bike. But I felt pretty good. So if you guys have done the St. George race, it's like kind of a mile and a half or 2 miles uphill, the first part of it. It's a different course than I've done for the 70.3 half. This is the course that they did last year for Worlds, where you go through the golf course. There's some grassy areas. There's a lot of like, it's a golf course. So there's a lot of like up, down, up, down. So you can't really get into a rhythm. You can't really get into a flow, either up or down. And the ups were steeper and the downs were steeper. So it was a really challenging run course. And so I feel like it's harder than the regular St. George run course. So I don't know if they're switching to that for the usual 70.3 or if they're going to keep the old one. But either way, there's a lot of hills. And I felt pretty good. I was doing my nutrition and everything felt pretty good. The only issue was I just felt really like tight and achy. I never felt like I was going to cramp. I just felt like tight and achy. So I was going pretty much as fast as I could. I think my average was 8:22, which is a little bit slower than, I mean, not much slower. I usually get between like 8. I usually get around 8 for a half Ironman distance. So it wasn't that much slower, maybe 2 or 3 minutes slower. But it definitely, I couldn't pick it up. And it wasn't because I was cramping, and I might have been a little low on calories. So I was trying to take in some stuff, but once you're low on calories, you can't really catch up. So again, those 2 mistakes of not having the clothes on bike and not taking the food after the bike were my like 2 big mistakes that I made during this race. So I think if I would have done that, I would have felt a little bit better. But I had a good race. Nothing went wrong. I did the best I could. I came off the bike, I think in like, I can't remember, maybe 13th place. So like, that's not bad at all for me on the bike. And then I ended the race after the run. It's cool to go back on the app and see like where you were at all the different markers, because it was changing constantly. I was anywhere between like 9th place and 18th place constantly during the ride. On the run, it always changed. So that's kind of fun. And like I said, I didn't know that at the time. Just looking back at it, I'm like, oh, that's cool. We were like kind of racing. I didn't know who was in my age group. Everyone looks the same to me. I did like racing with all women. That was really cool. I've never done a race. I mean, I've done all women's races, but I've never done a long distance race, a long course, like an Ironman or half Ironman with all women. So that was kind of cool. And I ended up, my run time was 1:49. And again, that's maybe a couple minutes slower than my normal time. I normally get between like 1:45 and 1:47. Like the past 6 years, that's what I compare to. But it felt decent. I just wasn't as fast as I wanted to be. So I ended up 17th place in my age group. So I'm really proud of 17th place. I'll be honest though, I wanted my time to be a little bit faster, and you can't control as much your place because you don't know who else shows up to the race. From like 10th through 20th, we were all within a couple minutes of each other. So if my race was a couple minutes faster, I would have placed a little higher. But for me, I wanted it to be a little bit faster because my overall time was 5:27. And at St. George, I've gotten 5:12, 5:15, 5:17, and 5:25 in my last 4 races there. So I was hoping that it would be just a little bit faster than just based on my other times. But again, that my race day was fine. I felt good. I ended up leaving immediately after the race to drive home so that I could spend Halloween weekend with Cora. And so I felt good driving home. I got a little bit of food in me, took a shower, packed up, and was on the road by 4:00. So that was pretty important to me. So all in all, kind of uneventful. Oh, so the other thing is, I guess the third thing, and this wasn't really a mistake, just something I hadn't practiced. I got one of those water bottle cages on the back of my saddle. And I practiced with it once. And in training, it wasn't too bad. I had a different water bottle, which, hello, I should use the same water bottle. And I had to kind of slow down and kind of like shimmy back there and like shimmy it up because my cage is super tight. So I was trying on this flat section, like right before Snow Canyon, like I was holding it, trying to pull it out. I couldn't. The girl behind me is like, come on, girl, you got this. I was like, I don't. So I had to stop and pull over to get that water bottle out and then, fill up. So I might have to do that again in the Ironman because it's so tight. I can't imagine being able to pull a water bottle out of it unless it was one of those like the Gatorade Endurance or those water bottles they have at the aid stations. Those would be perfect in there. But as far as like a regular water bottle, it was way too tight. So yeah, that would be the only other like issue, but that was a non-issue. I basically pulled over, pulled it out, and got back on the road on my bike. So yeah, I always highly recommend the races in St. George. It's a gorgeous place. The weather was awesome. It was me that wasn't awesome. I should have like kept to my plan, which is what I would tell my athletes, right? Stick to your race plan. I didn't. I literally was like, oh, it's so nice out now. This is going to be perfect. But it was perfect temperatures for the run. And again, St. George always has amazing volunteers. It was fun racing with all the women. It was fun racing at a world championship. And they still do the 70.3 there in May. So if you're looking for a fun, well-supported, challenging race course, I highly recommend it. So that's all. If you have any questions about the race course, I've done races out there like 10 times. So I know a lot about the race courses and stuff like that. So feel free to ask unless you don't trust me because of my rookie mistakes. I get that. So anyway, that is my race report for the 2022 70.3 World Championships in St. George. See you guys next time. All right, bye.